Hey YouTube, welcome to another episode of News in 2 Minutes, bringing you the news that you need to know every day. Let's begin. 4 people, including 1 American, have been killed in violent protests in Egypt as over 100,000 pro-government protesters clashed with anti-hardline Islamists this weekend. The country is bracing for what many within Egypt are calling a second revolution, while the nation's religious authority has echoed warnings of civil war if the protests continue. The circumstances have caused the U.S. and other Western nations to warn their citizens not to travel to Egypt and that all U.S. nationals should remain on alert. Egyptian media is reporting that the American killed in the rioting was a 21-year-old student who was shot while videotaping the protests, and they report that the army has fired into a crowd of people attempting to burn down a building. Muslim Brotherhood-elect President Mohamed Morsi has shown his power by deploying Egypt's military to the streets as protesters gather near government buildings. In a continued attempt to separate those within the military from the truth of what is happening to American citizens, the Department of Defense has initiated a program that filters and blocks any website that hosts information regarding the citizen spying program PRISM. Canada has passed a new law this week that makes it illegal to wear a mask in protest or unregistered areas where 3 or more people gather, carrying with it a maximum sentence of 10 years. Joining Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, Canada is the latest country to enact new laws that attempt to curb the prospect of regional protests and give the authority farther-reaching powers. A geomagnetic storm nearing the G3 classification is in progress at the time of this recording. The storm is caused by solar wind from a large coronal hole that seems to have been bolstered by a recent CME, amplifying the storm's effect on Earth, causing brilliant auroras at high altitudes and an increased quake watch as the storm subsides. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has cleared a path for a New Mexico company to begin processing horse meat at the first slaughterhouse approved by the United States in more than 5 years. The approval cites a growing need for non-conventional meat delivery and has touched on a debate as to whether horses are livestock and should be considered for eating. And to wrap things up, researchers at MIT are developing an inexpensive and portable Wi-Fi system that will allow citizens and the police to see through walls. China has threatened the Philippines with warfare if the countries cannot come to terms over potential oil reserves, and government agencies across the country are tracking license plate numbers, locations, and credit card purchases to store in nationwide databases. And that's it for this episode of News in 2 Minutes. Check back tomorrow for more news that the aware need the most. This week's News in 2 Minutes is brought to you by SHTFplan.com, where even the officials go for news.